Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Uh, in my northern climate, we need to get our sprinklers and outdoor taps all drained of water or blow out our sprinklers. And it's that time of year to do that. The forecast is for below zero pretty much night and day now for the foreseeable future. And it's supposed to get to be like -8 Celsius the next several nights. And that's just too cold to risk the outdoor taps. So I actually was out on the weekend and did this job. It was a really windy, cold day, so I just tried to take some video and I didn't try to talk through it at all. But I'm going to try and put that together for you so you can see how I do it because it's really not a difficult thing to do. And if you have just a couple of simple tools, one, you'll need an air compressor, and it doesn't need to be a real big one, and enough line to reach from your air compressor to your outdoor valves and taps. So if your air compressor is a stationary one like mine is, you need quite a bit of hose. If it's a portable one, then you won't need a whole lot. And then you need an attachment to hook from the air hose to a tap. So this is just a little contraption my husband actually put together, and it's just several different pieces. So you need, this has a quick connect for the air hose, and it's connected to an on-off kind of valve here. And then there's the piece that it connects on the tap, and he just needed to get a piece that connects from here up to the tap size. And I believe that's the hardest part to find, but if you go to your local hardware store and ask around, they can probably help you to put something like this together. He's just wrapped each of these pieces with Teflon tape just to help seal the air through. And that's what you're going to need, really. You might need a wrench to undo some of the water lines if you choose to do that, or if you need to do that in your situation. But other than that, it's pretty basic. So compared to the cost of paying someone to come and blow out your sprinklers every year, investing in, just a few simple things could save you money after a couple of years. So I'm going to take you over to the video and you can see how I did this, and I hope it's helpful to you.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is locate your indoor water source that leads to your outdoor lines, and then it'll have a tap on it somewhere and you need to turn that off. Some will be like a regular screw type tap, some will be a quarter turn type tap like this. Then there'll be a little valve somewhere on it. Put something underneath to catch the water and turn that valve, but do it very slowly, very carefully. Again, there's different styles of these valves, but some, like the little thumb screw kind of thing like I have there, can all of a sudden just pop out and water will come running. To get the water to flow a little faster for you, because this is kind of a tedious part of the job, open up the outdoor pipe, outdoor taps, and that will get water running through, because it kind of sucks the air through and gets the water running down out of the pipe for you. This is just draining the water out of your indoor pipes and away from that outdoor tap so that you don't have any freeze up right at the wall there of your house. So I don't really think you need to empty the pipe the entire way, but we usually just drain the whole line, and then there's nothing really in it, just very small amounts. So once that's done, you just screw that thumb screw back in and make sure that the tap stays off, because you don't want water going into that outdoor line now. And see, there's just a little bit of water left there in there. So then you need to close your taps outside back, turn them back off so the air from your air hose isn't going and getting pushed through the indoor lines. And I disconnect my hoses because the way my things are set up, that's my access to my sprinkler line. So I'll screw my little attachment on that way. You might have a little bit different setup, so there's a chance you won't need that attachment that goes on the tap the same way. So just look at what you have before you start buying things and see what you actually need to attach into your sprinkler line. And that's my air hose there. So I've turned it off, and then I'm going to turn the air on so it's going through and pressurizing that line. And then I need to go over to my my manifold or box where the controls are for my sprinklers outside. And I'm just going to turn one valve for one of my sets of sprinklers. Turn it on. And then you'll see the water start spraying out of the lines there. And they'll go for a little while. It just kind of depends how long the run is, how much water is in the lines. You see how windy it was that day. Water shooting everywhere. You will probably get wet depending on where things are situated in your yard. So they just spray for a little while there. And you want to try and just wait for them to spray all the water out. And there's usually one sprinkler that'll go the longest. It's usually the furthest from the manifold, and or if you have one that's a little bit lower in the ground or something, that'll be the one, because that's where more of the water is getting pushed through too. So, and usually the little sprinkler heads, if you have the pop-up kind there, will go back down when they've lost that pressure. So you can see I have a couple still going there, and the other ones are kind of off and on a little bit as they're draining, but okay. And once all the water has drained out of that first set of sprinklers, then you'll just go back over to your manifold box, turn that set off and turn the next set on. So now I've turned on my sprinklers for my garden. Now, you don't really need to drain. My garden is mostly just like a drip tubing, and the tubes themselves don't actually need to be drained. But as you may have noticed there, I have uprights leading to those lines, and so I always run a little bit of water through just to make sure that there's nothing caught in those uprights. And some of my lines are above ground, like my main lines that lead to the drips. And then here I'm doing the other side of my grass. So I'll get those all emptied out. And then I usually run through each set a couple of times just to make sure that there's no remaining water in the lines. The main thing is you want to make sure that there's really not enough water. There's no water in anything that's above ground. Like I said, drip line will drain out naturally on its own. But anything else that's above ground needs to make sure it's completely empty. And then anything that's, lower than that might get frozen, you still want to make sure there's lots of room for the water to expand, because it will expand as it freezes, and you don't want it to break any lines. So just go through all the sets of sprinklers that you have and make sure they're all drained out as much as you can get them. So here's one of my last sprinkler heads, spray valve heads. They're just, I don't know if you can see, it's going back and forth, but there's nothing coming out except every once in a while there you'll just see that little spurt. So there's not enough left in there to do any damage now. It's mostly just blowing air back and forth there. And most of the time these little pop-ups will go back down for you, but if they don't, it's really easy. You just barely need to touch them and they'll usually pop down for you. So just make sure they're all down, back tucked in the ground, so that they don't get hit by a shovel or anything, because when they're frozen in the winter there, if anything hits them, like a kid running through the yard or an animal or anything, shovel, plastic will break really easily when it's cold like that. So you want to just make sure they're all in the ground. So now that all my sprinklers are done, it's now time to take care of the lines that are outside on the side of the house there. So let's get to that. Okay, so now that we've got all our lines blown out, we like to take our attachment from the sprinkler lines off the tap Now the main reason for this is lots of years in the fall or the spring, I won't, I'll blow up my sprinkler lines earlier and I'll still use the tap because it's close up to the house there. It can handle a little bit colder weather. Or in the spring again, I might want the tap before I'm ready to hook the sprinkler lines up. And so we just detach that and then I can hook a hose straight to the house that way without getting water in the sprinkler lines. So I don't think that's actually necessary. What you do want to do is make sure that your outdoor taps are open back up part way and that your valves for your sprinklers are all open up part way. And that just allows, so there's not too much pressure being built up with air or water in there, kind of allows things to move around a little bit. So we'll get that all closed up, make sure it's closed and out of the snow, and then I go over to my hoses. And now I've taken the end that was on the house, brought it over here. I should have really been holding on to it. The end that's on my hose reel that I usually have my my sprayer end attached to, I've just hooked up my air hose to now. And I don't put my hoses away in a frost-free area, so I just spray the water out of them. Now I should have been holding on to the other end here, but for some reason I wasn't. And there it goes. But it doesn't damage the hose and it gets all the water out, so they don't need to be, you don't need to worry about them cracking because they hold a lot of water. So again, this is another hose reel that I have. This one does come off the house, so I've just set it here and I've hooked the air line on one end and you can see where it would attach to the house. Hopefully you can see there's some water dripping out as the water comes through the hose there.
So I hope that was helpful for you to see that video and to see the process of it all. Um, you're really just trying to get the majority of the water out of the lines so that if the water freezes and expands, it's not going to break your tap, which is really expensive if you have to start ripping the side of your house apart to fix that tap up, or if it breaks your underground water lines and you have to start digging up water lines to repair those. That can be quite expensive and quite difficult as well. So I hope this helped you. Thanks for watching. Bye.